Yeah, trying to think if we have something.
It was somewhere in Colorado.
Yeah.
Do you have sound on your?
No, just
Okay.
It's a Honda. So I was looking for one myself.
Less water.
Yes.
It's kind of cool. You can get out. No, they fixed it. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, because they came out in church, but I know that when they were, even at that time, the grades were kind of.
turn them around.
Yeah.
See,
We're not that exact. So we're going to start with a couple of hymns. Or with one hymn, and then I'll introduce you. We have a couple of other announcements tonight. The council will be like I said about
here.
the last couple of
I wonder if the timers.
but there were a lot of questions as well. So.
No, but I mean for the time, because the time changed. And I wondered about, because choir was full on Thursday night. And I'm wondering if we're just not doing anything with these calls. Because we're normally
Well, welcome to you all. Dennis, I'll ask you to come up just a little bit so that you're not so far back.
I'm trying to find the last pew.
No, you only have to talk one, so it's fine.
sit right up here in front. Here.
Play town.
We'll let Terry stay up top of the office.
Terry has.
And Elizabeth, you're our guest, so you can sit wherever you like.
Thank you.
You've probably heard everything he has to say anyways.
Yeah, I know.
All right. I think before anything else, we'll start with our first hymn, Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross. Well, good evening to you. Just a few announcements as we begin this evening and before I introduce our guest. First of all, this Friday we are serving lunch at St. Mark's, and two of my regulars, go-to guys who go to St. Mark's to help serve the lunch, namely Greg and Dennis, are both unavailable this Friday. So if anybody is available and would like to help serve lunch at St. Mark's on Friday, we meet there at 10, and we're usually done by about 1 or 1:30, probably about 1:30. So if you'd like to help out, let me know, and I can fill you in on how that works. Just to let you also know, I went and visited with John Fry yesterday. Rebecca got a call from the nursing home on Monday and said that he's not doing well and they should gather together to basically say their goodbyes. So if you want to keep John and his family, Rebecca and everybody in their prayers. John's son, John, is driving in from Maine right now. So just to keep them in your prayers this week. Also, one other big announcement before I introduce Walter, and I'd like to invite Amy and Greg, both of you. I think both of them are good. This is such a big announcement, we need two people to make it.
Okay, so the pastor call committee submitted a candidate's name to the council, and tonight the church council unanimously approved that candidate. So we're moving forward in the process. We still have to respect that candidate's confidentiality until we get things ironed out with the Synod, but we'll be having I'll let Greg talk about the congregation.
Thank you. An enormous thank you to the call committee for all the work they've done this past year. It's been quite a process, and they've done a wonderful job, and we are absolutely thrilled to be here at this time, and it's so exciting. We just want to get the word out to everybody. We also want to let everybody know that there'll be a special congregational meeting May 1st following the worship service at 9 o'clock, so presumably 10 o'clock. So please put that on your calendars and be sure to join us at that time. And, yes, a great big thank you to the call committee and all the work you guys did. Oh yeah, then also too, we are going to have a meet and greet. We're not exactly sure what day it's going to be yet. It's either going to be the 20th or the 27th. Those are Wednesdays. It's going to be a Wednesday evening, but we're going to let the candidate let us know which date works best for them for that particular event. So please, if you can, come on out and we'll do a meet and greet and get to know that person. So we're excited about that. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. And we don't want to mention who the pastor is at this point because that pastor doesn't even know that we did this yet. So you all are finding out first. We will be sending a letter out to the congregation and over email probably next week, I think, and we'll let you know all of those details at that time. And I think with the meet and greet, we're planning on being in one of those Wednesdays, but again, we kind of want the pastor to be here, so we have to confirm it with that person and make sure that the pastor can be here as well. I'd like to introduce to you Pastor Walter Barris. He is an assistant to the bishop here in the South Central Synod of Wisconsin. He's been in that position since 2019, I think? That's correct. The spring of 2019. He's also the director of evangelical mission for our synod, but wears some other hats in our synod as well. Walter came to us from the Greater Milwaukee Synod, and where his wife Elizabeth, who is also with us, and you are a pastor in that synod, right?
Yes.
And she's also an ELCA pastor, and I assumed you were in that synod, but serving a congregation there?
No, I just transferred my this thing.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay. Okay, very good. So now you're in our synod.
Correct.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to the South Central Synod. Walter is going to be talking to us about a number of things. One is the Latino Ministries within our synod. Interestingly, we have a Bible study on Wednesday mornings, and about a month ago I got a call from a woman who's been living here since the pandemic began, basically, but she is from Ecuador and was looking for a congregation. And just today we were talking about you coming here, and she was asking about the Spanish language services in our synod, and I wasn't sure exactly where the one in Madison is meeting at the moment, so I told her I would find that out and let her know. But Walter's here with us, and I think that's all I have to say. Other than we are collecting an offering this evening. The offering for this evening will go to the Latino Ministries in our synod. So please feel free to place an offering in the offering plates for the Latino Ministries. Thank you. Walter.
Good evening, everyone. It's on? Okay. It is good to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I think this is one of my first congregation I'm coming to do this kind of presentation emerging from the pandemic. So it is good to be here and doing what I like to do. Thanks so much. Before I arrived in Milwaukee, I have a life too. And I was born in El Salvador. I was baptized Roman Catholic, raised as Pentecostal, and became later I became the first one in my family as a Lutheran. So I am first generation Lutheran in my family. And sometimes the assumption is that Latinos are Roman Catholics. It's not true. Not all of them. Yes, the Roman Catholic is still the largest denomination in Latin America. But in the last, 50 years, the Protestant churches have been growing. And the Lutheran Church, for instance, in Central America, is being one of the fastest growing churches in all denominations, at least in Central America. So that church is still growing. And I remember when I was still worshiping at Resurrection in San Salvador, we began to have our first exchanges with the ELCA. We used to be a synod. But then later on, we became an independent synod and developed a relationship with the ELCA. And there was a time in which my bishop says, my dream is that one day we will be sending missionaries from the south to the north. Because at that point we were getting a lot of missionaries coming to El Salvador and Central America. And a few years back, I went to El Salvador, and I said to my bishop, you sent me over there. My wife came also, and originally we came to study because my wife was also being prepared to be a pastor. She came to the seminar, for seminar. Then after she finished, 2 earthquakes happened in El Salvador. And so the church says, look, we want you here, but we are not ready to have you back. This was the year 2001. And then they say, we will let you to stay over and serve in the United States as one of our missionaries, And so we ended up in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a companion synod with El Salvador. And originally we were there 5 years. 5 years became 8. 8 became 10. And by that time, we realized we are not going back. So by then, we made the shift and we became part of the roster of the ELCA. And we are still connected with the church in El Salvador. So we have that connection. But the thing is that we never dreamed about this. We didn't think that we would be doing ministry in this country. And it is a blessing because we are pastors for the church. We are not pastors for one group. We are pastors for the larger church. And that is what we are doing right now. So very happy to be here. I was ordained in 1994. My wife was ordained in 2001. And she was ordained in Milwaukee. 2 bishops were there, my bishop, Bishop Gomez and Bishop Odell in Milwaukee. And since then, we have been serving in the United States. So we have 4 grandkids. And that's the main reason we are going back to Mexico and El Salvador. We have 4 grandkids. 2 of our kids already live in Madison, and one is still in the process of moving to Madison. So we want to keep the family nearby, and this is the best way for us to be supported. Family is a big thing everywhere, but in the Latino community, family is always the main and major thing that we are really are passionate about it. And keeping the family close is something that we really try to do every time we can. So, why am I here? Now I remember. Well, I've been serving in this capacity in the South Central Synod as Director for Evangelical Mission and Assistant to the Bishop for almost 2 years. May 1st is going to be my 3rd year serving in this synod, and I am very, very happy. And every day, I also learn more and more about how to be a pastor, how to be a disciple of Christ in an ever-changing world. Something that I would like to ask you, now starting talking about Latino Ministries in the South Central Synod of Wisconsin. I wonder if you know that in Latin America, there are no Hispanics. You won't have any Hispanic in Latin America. We call ourselves Salvadorians, Mexicans, Cubans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans. But here in the United States, we lump people from Latin America and Hispanic heritage under the Hispanic classification. Well, Hispanic is not a race, it is an ethnic classification. Hispanics are people that have been in this country for a very long time. The Hispanic ancestors include Native Indians and early settlers. Hispanics have Indian, European, and African roots. We are very racially and diverse. I was talking with my wife when we were coming for this presentation, and I began to think about my grandkids. 2 of them are Hmong, Latino, and American. The other 2 are Japanese, Latino, and American. And I say, just in this little family, we have a little taste of how diverse we are. So you will see Latinos who look like Asians. You will see Latinos who look like white people. You will see Latinos who look like African American. You will see Latinos who look just like me. Very Latino. But the thing is that we are a community of communities. It is hard to identify the Latino community as one homogeneous group. We are coming with different flavors. We are coming also with different traditions, different cultures. But there are a few things that identify all the Latinos, mostly. And that is the language, faith, and traditions. And that is what keeps us together. So it is easy to communicate. And we see this community of communities as a gift. They are a gift for the world. A gift that needs to be shared. Just in the United States, 59.7 million Latino people live in this country. They represent 18% of the USA population. Wisconsin, just in Wisconsin, we got about 447,000 Latino people are living here. South Central Wisconsin is the home for at least 68,000. From those 68,000, 17,000 live in the Madison area. When you, Pastor Rob was asking about the Latino Ministry in the Madison, the only one that we have in the Madison area is located at Lutheran Memorial. It used to be in Fishpool, but 2 years ago they moved in a more central area where people can also have better access. So they are being housed at Lutheran Memorial. They are using or sharing the space at Lutheran Memorial and developing also the partnership with that congregation. But it is about 70,000 Latinos, and I am not surprised that maybe the lady who came today, maybe there will be more coming and asking. And I will tell you more about that. In our ministry, we are trying to reach out 3 different groups of Latinos. The first group is what we call the immigrant population. Then we have the second group, and those are the established families. So they came as migrants, but after some years, they found a home here. And then we have the new generation of Latinos, the AGLs. The migrant population is what we also call the sacrificial generation. Those are the ones who have been living from 0 to 10 years. They are also known as the bridge generation. This group of families, they are still connected with their home countries. They are sending financial help to their families back home. This is the group of families who also believe, like I did when I came for the first 5 years or 7 years, that one day I was going to go back to my country. That is the dream of this group. The most important thing are kids. They feel as a bridge for kids to succeed. We'll do whatever it takes, any job, any time. Sometimes working 2 jobs at the same to support their families. Faith, church, and church are crucial. You will will find altars at their home, or even big religious pictures. Sometimes Our Lady of Guadalupe is there, but at least you will find a little altar at their homes. Always asking pastors or priests to come and bless the house with agua bendita, with holy water. They are big givers to church in ways other than financially. Remember, this is the group that have their heart divided between here and there, with their families in Mexico or El Salvador or any other country in Latin America. But still, the way they contribute is also making fundraising, working with others, supporting the church in whatever they can. But financially, this is the group that is crushed between the family here and the families in their home countries. The second group are the established families. These are the families who began to establish their roots here. They are working as teachers. They are working in different professions. Some of them are pastors too, serving in different capacities. They have been living here for more than 10 years. This is the group that realize that they are staying. They are learning English. Sometimes speaking even in a broken English. They are trying to figure out how the economy works. They are taking loans to buy a house, to buy a car, and taking loans to send kids to college. They are still helping their family back home. For a fact, I know in some families, even my own family, they still have that connection. And if you are aware that things are getting very difficult, not only in Mexico, but Central America and Latin America in general. And so that commitment to support the family is still there for this group of Latinos. So, but their heart, little by little, is turning toward the new home. But still, they keep that connection, supporting families back there. And something that I learned over the years was that this is a kind of how do we call it? We do the, I mean, I miss this word. Sustaining families and supporting their country is a way also of offering. So, but there is another different name for that, different word for that than for right now. But anyhow, so but this group is little by little taking more ownership of their ministry, or if they are related to a church. They are also bringing the older parents to strengthen the fabric of the family. And usually the older parents are the ones who ended up supporting the youngest ones. And that's why this connection between the new generation with the older parents is always very, very strong. They are involved in kids' school, and they volunteer. They do neighborhood watch, they do neighborhood gardens, and in any way that they can support the neighborhood, they are willing to step up. So this group of families, or this group of established families, are more knowledgeable of their rights. Faith and church are still very important, and they are still connected also with the language. If you ask me how I feel more comfortable thinking or praying, I would say I still feel more comfortable when I pray in Spanish or when I sing in Spanish too. I can sing in English, I can follow, but it's like you put your spirit in a box and you cannot free your spirit to do and to express yourself in a more authentic way. So the language is still important for this group, and they're still connected. I mean, with the worship, life, and the devotional life is always also, they want to do it in Spanish. They are open to serve in church council. They are also began to adapt the culture of offering. Remember that in most Latin American countries, most of the churches, the offering concept is not there. Usually, they are coming from a more Roman Catholic background, and in those traditions, they pay for the religious services. So that means that if they have a baptism, they pay for it. If they're going to have a confirmation, they pay for it. Weddings, whatever it is, they pay for it. So that's why when the time comes to collect the offerings during worship service, mostly people give the loose change. But because the understanding is we pay for everything, so the church does what it does because every service is paid for. So that is a different concept of being a church. So this established group is the one that is ready to make the change and to adapt this different way of being the church. This group also is open to see married pastors serving or married priests. They wouldn't mind if a priest is married. They are open to women in leadership. They want kids also to experience equality. They see themselves as assets with dignity. The college-bound kids need connections. So in most of the cases, this is the first generation of kids going to college with the support of the family. So when they go to college, they don't find any connection over there. So that is an opportunity, to connect these kids in the life of, I would say, on-campus ministries. This group also is interested in being founders of entities. The third group is the new generations. This is the group that is more willing to be integrated. 50% of this group are bilingual. They are still connected to culture, music, art. They adore their abuelos, their grandparents. There is a strong connection with their abuelos. They have one foot in the mainstream. Acceptance is crucial. An NGL, the new generation of Latinos, is someone of Latino heritage who was born in the United States or lived here for 15 or more years and leads a bilingual or bicultural lifestyle. NGLs are 14 to 34 years old. They live mostly in urban settings. English is the dominant language. They are acculturated, they are bilingual and bicultural. They represent the second and third generation of Latinos. NGLs have deep ties and values with parents and grandparents' roots and faith. There are more than 23 million NGLs in the United States. And as I said before, they are very diverse, and also this is the group that is ready and happy to embrace diversity. So, Wisconsin, as I mentioned before, the Latino population in Wisconsin is about 447,000. South Central of Wisconsin is the home for 68,000, and 70,000 of those Latinos live in the Madison area. In our synod, we have two Latino ministries. One is located in Beloit. They also share space with St. Paul in Beloit. This is a ecumenical ministry. This is a ministry done in collaboration with the Presbyterian Church. And to me, this has been the first experience in which both bodies and work together to raise Latino leaders and Latino disciples in the Beloit area. The other Latino ministry is Parroquia Santa Maria, and they share space with Lutheran Memorial here in Madison. And they have been there for 2 years, for around 2 years. But this ministry has been in existence for at least 5 years now. And those are ministries that are coming back from the pandemic. Most of them are formed or integrated by families who we consider as essential workers. And despite, even in the midst of all of these craziness that the pandemic has brought to us, these communities are still survive. They survive, and they prove to be resilient, and they are now emerging again with this desire to continue being God's presence for the Latino community in the neighborhoods. This picture is from Parroquia Santa Maria. This, you can tell, is pre-pandemic. Back in those years. This is a vibrant Latino ministry that has been affected, as many of our congregations have been affected by the pandemic. And the Madison Latino population is more diverse than the one in Beloit in terms of different groups with different cultural backgrounds. We got people from South America, Central America, Mexico. Down in Beloit is mostly Mexican from rural communities. But still, the reach of the outreach ministry is basically to embrace these three groups. And where most of our Latino leaders find more difficulties is to reach out to especially the third generation. The third generation is the one that says, we like the music, we like the culture, but I don't understand 80% or 90% of what the pastor is saying, the pastor is preaching. So some congregations adapting and trying to figure out how to make sure that we keep connected with that generation. But what I can see is also how being in partnership is very important. So that, the partnership between St. Paul and Lutheran Memorial. So there is a natural space where those kind of relations, where the relationship between these generations can be strengthened with a local English-speaking ministry. Some partnerships are taking place in a way in which kids are trying to do or be in Sunday schools in a way that is combined between the English-speaking ministry and the Latino ministry, join confirmation classes. So that type of partnership provide that opportunity to keep this generation engaged. And so for most of the Latino ministries, the greatest challenge is to make sure that that generation keep connected. And I would say that we are blessed to have at least a church that is ready to welcome them. The Lutheran Church, I believe, has a lot to offer to the Latino community. It's a church that can offer grace, something that many of these families haven't found. They are coming from places where judgment is what is taught, and usually they feel like they have to earn merit in order to belong or to be part of. So another thing that the Lutheran Church offers is the liturgy. Most of the families who are related or are coming from a most Roman Catholic background, they feel at home when they are in a Lutheran setting, because we follow or practice almost the same liturgy. And the other thing that they also find in the Lutheran Church is that women have a space to go in leadership. And not just any kind of leadership, but also to be a pastor. So they are ready for that and very happy to embrace that change in the life of the church. So don't be surprised that more often there will be Latino families knocking at your door and looking for those opportunities. And the question is, for all of us, is how willing or ready are we to open our arms and to open our doors to these newcomers. Sometimes those newcomers are already bilingual and are looking for a place where they can be part of. They are not necessarily looking for a Roman Catholic churches. Even if they are Roman Catholic, they are looking for a place where they can be part of. They want to belong. They want to be part of the community. Especially, they want to find a place where they can keep growing in their faith as well as in their discipleship. Right now, we are also encouraging congregations through our synod to support our Latino ministries by becoming a partner, mission partners, or mission partners. So a mission partner is a congregation that can pray for our ministries. It's a congregation that, if they want to invite Latino leaders to come and to talk about how they are they doing their ministry, or how are they experience their life as new immigrants living in this country, or how are they also supporting families who are being affected because of the current immigration law. So they are more than willing to come and share. A mission partner also can be a congregation that can commit to support financially those ministries, or just to be a congregation who wants to walk along with these ministries. So I will encourage you to consider to be one of our mission partners. And if a time comes when you want to have an event where you want to also open up to the Latino families in the area, they also will be more than willing to come. That is about our Latino Ministries. I mean, they are, during the pandemic, they were also working really hard in educating the Latino community. This information was really affecting a lot of Latino families regarding the vaccination, regarding the COVID-19 campaign that was put in place to educate for vaccinations. So these two communities were working really hard in educating the Latino communities, neighborhoods where they are located. At the same time, they were also partnering with other organizations, trying to make sure that there was food in people's tables, knowing that most of them were essential workers, and during the most difficult time of the pandemic, there were families who were left without a job. So they were working alongside with those families that were affected. So now, little by little, families are coming back, and a great part of their ministry also is being directed into train, and also to make sure that the discipleship leadership is in place, which means that the congregations are now open up opportunities for their leaders to gain more skills, as some of them serving in different capacities. Some of them are learning how to even preach, knowing that sometimes they don't have pastors. So there are a process of training leaders to lead even worship services, knowing that sometimes clergy are not available. So there are some of the things that they are also trying to learn. Other than that, I believe they really request prayers. Prayers are needed. I think the desire to keep reaching out to the Latino community is there. Sometimes the resources are not in place, but the desire and the will is right. So I will stop here. I don't know how long it's been already. But I will stop here if you want to have time for questions.
And I think somebody had asked from online if when we ask questions, we can repeat them or use the microphone so they can hear it online also. But are there any questions that you have?
What attracted you to the Lutheran Church growing up Catholic and then Pentecostal? What prompted you to call into the Lutheran Church?
When I was almost 13, this is the time in which there was a civil war happening in El Salvador. And during that time, I began to listen Bishop Romero homilies on the radio. Bishop Romero was the Roman Catholic bishop in San Salvador, who constantly was preaching and denouncing also the injustices that were taking place in El Salvador, denouncing the human rights violations. And so for some reason I began to listen to him, even if I didn't want to. Because when I was walking in my neighborhood, people was listening to his sermons with the radios in high volume. So when I got into the bus, riding the bus, the driver was listening to Bishop Romero on the bus. And so I like it. But I realized that I couldn't be a pastor, a priest, because I wanted to be married, I wanted to be family too. So when I was serving as a volunteer, I used to be an EMT. The small Lutheran church was 6-8 blocks away from where I was serving. And I used to pass by that little church. I never stopped by. But one day the Lutherans came to our station, and they were asking for help. They wanted to get people from the countryside who were affected by the war. They wanted to evacuate them, to take them to a safe place. The Lutheran Church at that time was trying to set up a refugee camp. And so, this is a long story. I will try to make it short. So they came, and they were asking for help. We tell them, we can't, because it's too dangerous. You can go to the Red Cross. The Red Cross can do that. But they say, no, the Red Cross don't want to do it, because they say the same thing. It's dangerous. So at that point, two of my friends who came and talked to me, and they decided that we want to do it. So we came. We went to the countryside in a big truck. We used our flags, the banners, our uniforms. But we knew that if they, in the military, discovered what we were doing, we could get killed. So we went, we got almost 100 people between women, elderly, and children. And when we were on our way back to the refugee camp, thanks God, the soldiers didn't stop us. But when we went back to the refugee camp, I asked to one of the Lutherans, why do you do this? And who is Luther? That was my second question. And then this guy told me, well, we do this because Jesus commanded us to do it, to love our neighbors. And no matter who they are, because at that point they were bringing the children, the elderly, and the women. They were the relatives of the guerrilla fighters. And that was dangerous, really dangerous. So when he said that, he said, we do it because God called us to love our neighbors. That is what we do it. And then he said, and about Luther, Don't worry about it. We can talk later about Luther.
It was the fest dinners.
So that is what attracted me, was the witness of the church. Their commitment to walk with those who are suffering. And even taking the risk to be persecuted for what they were doing. That was the first time which I began to get to know about the Lutheran Church, and about how the Lutherans were serving. I didn't have to ask my questions. I realized this is my church. And that is what kept me in the Lutheran Church.
It's my understanding that many Hispanic people in Wisconsin live in the rural areas and work in the agricultural areas of Wisconsin, particularly in dairy farms. Are they settled there, or are they mostly people who are, I guess, do we call them migrant workers? They're here for a period of time and then they go back and kind of are going back and forth continually?
It is a combination of both. There are, some who are settling down in some of those areas. And there are others who do it seasonally. Seasonal, yes. Those who are more who need to move constantly are the ones who also don't have documents. When the situation becomes difficult for them to stay in one place, they move to another place. Especially when they are harassed by the police, or if they don't feel like they are welcome in some places, so they just move to other areas. But what I know about those working in the dairy areas is that they found that most of the owners of those farms are very welcome and very supportive. In some cases, they have been also advocating for immigration reform. But it's a combination of both.
On that question you asked, Joel, I served at Waterloo, just between here and Watertown for a number of years, and there are a lot of migrant workers out in that area, working in dairy fields, dairy farms, working at McKay's nursery, and places like that. And there were a lot of families who lived there all year round as well as the migrant workers who came and went. So there was a large Latino population in that area, which was interesting. And as far as I could tell, especially among students in the schools, very well accepted and very welcome. A couple of other thoughts that I had. When I went on a couple of mission trips with our youth down to Kansas City, Kansas, and we stayed in an area of the city that had been basically deserted. People had moved out and the shop buildings were closed, and the way one of the people in the community described what happened was that first the men came, and they were men from Mexico and Latin America, and they would live several men to a room or a house or something. And then over the years, the children started coming and the women started coming, and the buildings in that neighborhood of the city that had been closed started to open up again. But now the signs were in Spanish. The store signs were in Spanish, and it kind of transformed. And the other thought that I had, and maybe you can speak a little bit more about this, but sometimes it's easy for me to get concerned about the future of the church and of our congregations, and seeing how the church in the United States has been struggling for so long. And one of the comments that you made, that the Protestant churches in Latin America are growing, was good for me to hear, because I think it was a good reminder for me that the church is growing. It might be struggling here in our country and in our neighborhoods a lot of times, but it is growing in other places. And maybe you could say a little bit more about that, I don't know. About how it's growing in those areas.
Well, on one hand, I can speak about the goal of the Lutheran Church in Central America. The reason that the church is growing in Central America is because the church has decided to work with the people. And so, in many cases, mostly, at least from the experience in El Salvador and Nicaragua, the church worked really hard with the refugees. And then, working with the refugees, the church began to, at least in Nicaragua, suddenly, the Salvadorians, going back to El Salvador, and the church in Nicaragua began to work with Nicaraguans, and the few Salvadorians who stayed there. I believe that the church created a space for people, for women. Open up a space for the women too. They developed their own. Churches developed their own liturgy. Those who are Lutherans, in the past, the first Lutherans, they used to sing songs, hymns, who were translated from German to English to Spanish. And when the church decided to change that, and to be more local, and to have a more the music that is more Latino, and the liturgy who was more related to what was happening, then the church began to grow. Some other denominations probably are growing in a different way, but at least in the life of the Lutheran Ministries is the fact that the church has created a space for the local leaders to be more involved in the decision making process, and having the music, having the openness of also embrace the social struggles. So the church have been also working with has been part of the struggle for justice. And that has been was another factor. Working for social justice has been one factor of the church, in which more and more people wanted to be part of it. I think I could share, those factors, and also developing or supporting lay leadership development. In many places, when we didn't have ordained pastors, so lay leaders were trained to step up, and they were the ones who also were leading the life ministry of those communities. So that was another factor, is the lay leadership development and lay leadership taking more ownership and responsibility for the life of the church.
Are there any other questions? Any final questions? Well, thank you, Walter.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we will close with our hymn, Here I Am, Lord.
I
Go in peace and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.